Hey guys, Old Place here. Um, I just wanted to go over today a few of the tools I use that are uncommon or may not be in your toolbox. Particularly, I wanted to kind of target this towards either people new to working on their own stuff or younger people, like basically anybody that's just collecting their tools, or maybe some stuff you just have never thought about that I have found incredibly helpful when working on various things. I've been a shade tree mechanic for most of my life. For me, it was critical. It wasn't an option. I've never had the money to take my stuff in. I do enjoy working on mechanical items. I've always loved machines and motors and just I had a mechanical mind. But unfortunately, most of the time it's a necessity rather than an option. It's really nice when you can tool on something as a recreation rather than an absolute necessity. But if you're a shade tree mechanic, good chance it's because there is no other option. So anyway, I want to detail a couple tools, a few tools, top 5 tools that are uncommon. I guess I'd call them like the secret weapons of the shade tree mechanic. So here are a few. This is the first one. This is an impact driver. You can get this at pretty much any auto parts store. Really, this is more something you find in a tool store. You typically won't find these like in a Lowe's or Home Depot or similar. You may, but I don't recall seeing them there. But anyway, it's real simple. All it is. This one and most of them come with like little hex bits. You can put screwdrivers, and this is what I use it for most, are stubborn screws. But you can also, at least most of the ones I've messed with, I've got 2 of these. You can actually take that off. It's got a 3/8 inch head on it. Anyway, the way this works, it's real simple. It has a ratcheting action. So whichever way you're wanting to go with the screw, usually off, you just twist it the right way. You kind of hold it. So like if you're trying to take a screw out, that's what I've used these on most often, are screws. You put it in there, you put a little pressure on it, you cam it the right direction, hold it, and you hit it with a hammer with a lot of force. And what it's doing is it's actually driving in, releasing tension off your threads, and rotating at the same time. And it will dislodge a lot of stuff that is stuck otherwise, without like snapping off heads most of the time. But this is about $30, I think, is what I paid for it. But I can't recommend one of these enough, particularly when you're dealing with old screws. Bolts too, but really this is more one of those where screws round off so easily. You strip out the heads very, very easily. So if you're really dealing with a stubborn one, I highly recommend one of these. I've used it a lot. All these tools are ones I've used that a lot more than I thought I would. So like I said, impact driver, definitely worth your time. The next one of my favorites. Some of you probably have seen these before, but it's every time I pull it out, it always amazes people. They aren't familiar with them. But that's a porta power. Whoops, stepping on stuff here. Anyway, yeah, porta power. So what this is, it's a hydraulic unit here. This is 4-ton, and you have various attachments. You got a spreader, opens things up. Well, you can see that. You have rams. This one's a push ram. I actually have a pullback ram too, and it'll come with various extensions like this. You can stack a bunch of them. I've got enough probably to make 8 feet of extension, and you've got different heads on it or bases to be used in different varieties, different ways. I've used it a lot for body work, pushing out panels where things have gotten dented. Use it a lot on suspension work. Like this, you can put pressure on like a tie rod end or something similar and smack it with a hammer, and a lot of times it'll just pop apart without wailing on it with like a mini sledge. I've used it to jack up walls, home walls, to put in new 2x4s and align, floors when things have fallen, rotted seals, etc. So, these are about figure at least $100. Most of the time when I've seen them, they're somewhere between $100 and $200, depending upon the brands you buy and what accessories come with it. All these, the rams and spreaders, they have pucks, they have a lot of different adapters for this. And this is a small one. You can get bigger ones, like 10-ton units and on up, but they get increasingly more expensive. But these little 4-ton units, like this ram's only, I think it's a 1-ton ram. Used it for all sorts of stuff, like straightening bumpers and body panels and homework, like working inside of your house. Anytime when you've got to lift a couple hundred pounds, this really comes in handy. Kind of like with some of the other tools, that you have to use it with caution. In a pinch, I've used it to jack up a car when I couldn't get a jack out, because the car sat lower than what the jack was able to go down. Particularly, if you're trying to switch tires, there's instances, but use a healthy dose of common sense and looking at where your loads are. Obviously, if you put these things under a ton of pressure, you're building a lot of potential energy, and if something unloads, kind of like if you're using a press, it can unload in a dynamic fashion, which you don't want to happen. It can actually cause serious injury, and like I said, precariously, just like a jack. If you were to use this in a situation that you would use a jack in, and something slips and you don't have sufficient safety precautions, you're going to get hurt, maybe even killed. So, fantastic tool. Use it with caution. So, like I said, I use this thing all the time. I'm really surprised by the number of people who aren't familiar with it, but it is a handy tool. Next one. Really suggest this, particularly for the shade tree mechanic. It's a stick magnet. I'm sure there's probably some technical name. I don't know what it is. I just call it a stick magnet. But there are variations on this. I've got one that's got the wide bar and wheels. That one, it works okay. It covers a wide area. But like this magnet is very strong, and this is inevitably, if you're working outside, if you're a shade tree mechanic, you're going to drop stuff in the gravel, in the grass. It's just gone. Now, obviously, it's not going to work on non-ferrous metals like aluminum, brass, anything like that. Not going to pick it up. But if it's a steel bolt or part, pin, I picked up all sorts of stuff with this. Very, very handy. Even my wife has used it to pick up like needles when she's dropped, her sewing kit. But it is handy, like I said, in the grass. You can just sweep it over. It's going to pick up, even though if you can't see it, it'll pick it up out of the grass. Where you're trying to sort through, you can never find this stuff. So, it's about $30. I think it's about what I paid for that, $20, $30, somewhere in there. You can find them a lot of places. Like I said, the wider ones are handy because it can cover a wider area. They just aren't strong enough, in my opinion. I also have one of those 500-pound fishing magnets, which, really this does as good a job for small bolts and items. So this is really all you need. You don't need to spend the money on the big ones, but for bolts, anyhow. But very handy. Highly recommend that. The next one, again, to be used with ample wisdom, I recommend going out. This is just galvanized pipe. That's all it is. Going out. This one's 2 feet long, and buying a couple different sizes, depending upon what you need, just to keep around. I'm sure everybody already knows what this is used for. Putting it on the end of a wrench, of a ratchet. Sometimes just prying leverage. Of course, again, if you're using a wrench, if you've got, a 1/4-inch wrench, super tiny, and you're putting, 3 feet of pipe on it, you're going to break something. You're either going to snap the bolt off or break your wrench, depending upon what you're on top of. But the main advantage to these extensions, these pipes, isn't so much, it's really to reduce the stress on yourself. If you just don't have the oomph to get it out, or you're struggling with it, it's just leverage. It's just math. It's science, physics. just by giving yourself longer, you can basically make your travel longer, which is what you're doing when you put it on the end of a wrench or a ratchet. You've increased, basically doubled, like if you were starting with 1 foot and you go to 2 foot, you've doubled the energy being applied at your center of movement, your rotation, compared to if it was 1 foot long. And obviously, that ratio adjusts depending upon how long your original handle was. I got an adapter because there have been a few times. I do have 3/4 and 1 inch ratchets where I've needed 4 feet or longer to make, to being able to remove a nut, particularly on tractors or large equipment. But like I said, you can get these all, you get a 1 foot, various diameters, because you don't want it too big because you lose too much movement trying to, engage your tool. But super handy. It's one of those things, you're hunting, in the middle of working on a project and you can't get it. You're trying to hunt around for something that'll fit over the end of your wrench, but yet be strong enough to do what you need it to do. And that's where these come in. Obviously, if you have to run back into town, it's not quite so convenient. But yeah, get an assortment of these. Very, very handy. Can't recommend it enough. The last one is one, I don't know why I never thought about this earlier. Like, I'd always use tarps. Tarps, keeping yourself out of mud and grime are handy. This is a moving blanket. I picked it up a few years ago, to move some stuff, to wrap some stuff in. Anyway, I ended up using this working outside. Like I said, I've used tarps for a long time. Don't know why I don't know why I had not used a moving blanket before when laying on the ground. Inside of my carport, I guess you call it, pole barn, whatever. It's got a gravel floor, and it's uncomfortable to lay on if you need to work on something. This, laying that down completely eliminates that, and this is like $5-6. So, highly recommend, keeping one in your vehicle. I keep one in our vehicles now. I had to work on the Excursion a few days ago, and there is a latch, in the middle for the hood latch, and I had to lean basically over it while I was working on replacing the water pump. Anyhow, it was very uncomfortable. Use this, removed all my problems, even for scratching your vehicles. Just laying that over it just makes it so much more comfortable. Lay it on the ground, even if it's wet. This stuff isn't cheap, but I can hang it on a clothesline, dry it. So yeah, moving blankets, it just reduces that level of stress and wear and tear and frustration a lot of times. And the other benefit I've ran into a few times with it is where it just, like when I can't get it under a roof and I've had to work outside and I just have a bunch of tools and it just starts downpouring, I can pick all 4 corners up and move all my tools at once and get them under cover until I can either move them back out or put them all away. So that's it. I hope maybe a couple of these tools are handy to some of you. I'd love to hear of other secret tools that some of you shade tree mechanics have in your inventory. If you have any, throw them in the comments below. But anyhow, you guys take it easy and we'll talk to you here soon. Bye.